Dribble. Double Dribble.
Welcome to the Double Dribble podcast with Dubin and Dakil. That is Jared Dubin, author of Last Night in Basketball. Make sure you're checking out his newsletter. Rock with everything he's got going. He's killing an amazing mouse rat shirt, which I'm kind of a little bit jealous of. A little bit. I know I'm not allowed to wear that in the house. But yeah, pretty jealous of that. I'm Mo Dakil, former video coordinator with the Clippers and Spurs, write for Bleacher Report. Do videos with Offsides. Make sure you're checking out Offside. Go to @JoinOffsides on all the socials. Make sure you're signing up to be on the wait list for our app that's going to come out soon. And that's where you're going to be able to get all my videos through the course of this season with all that fun stuff. Jared, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, man. I'm already on the wait list for Join Offside, so you don't have to tell me that. What is the shirt that you're wearing, by the way? I've got my mouse rat shirt on. What's yours?
I am wearing a shirt called for the World Sevens. It was the Women's World Seven tournament that I went to in Portugal that I worked in May. It was a super fun soccer tournament. 7-on-7, like automatic subs, like hockey subs kind of stuff. It was actually pretty amazing tournament.
That's wild.
I would actually highly recommend folks, if they get a chance, check it out. This was big clubs too. This was Man United, Man City, PSG, Roma. We had a bunch of big clubs across the board that were there. I would highly recommend checking that out. But Jared, we're a basketball podcast, and the most important thing about being a basketball podcast is our listeners subscribing and rating and giving us reviews. 5-star reviews, folks. That's all we want. I'm looking to get 5 million by the end of next season. We crossed the 100 mark, and now I want to get 5 million because that's the natural progression, right, Jared?
Yeah, I think my interim goal was 500, and then we go to 5 million. Working our way there, about a third of the way there so far. But hopefully we'll get there soon. And yeah.
Also,
subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, youtube.com/@DoubleDribblePod. Subscribe, rate the podcast, unsubscribe, resubscribe, subscribe on all of your, parents, brothers, sisters, boyfriends, girlfriends, everybody else, phone and computer, and just do it all those different places. That would be really fun for us.
Take a stranger's phone. Don't do that. Sorry, that was a joke. Don't do that, folks. I shouldn't be encouraging such actions. But tell a stranger.
Give the phone back. You could take it. Just give it back.
No, I mean, that might cause problems. But tell the stranger about this amazing podcast, the Dribble podcast with Dubin and Dakil. Folks, we got a lot to cover, but I'm going to tell you what we're not going to cover. We're not going to run into the latest on the Jonathan Kuminga news because I'm kind of just tired of the restricted free agency cycle that he's gone through. And, I mean, there's really not much more news about the Kawhi Leonard, Steve Ballmer, Pablo Torre circumventing the calf situation. I don't know what to make of it anymore.
Yeah, the latest news is that the aspiration guy is trying to beef with Pablo on Twitter, and Mark Cuban is trying to argue with Pablo on Twitter. And in that sense, there's not really that much for us to talk about.
Yeah, because we're not beefing with any of them, nor do we want any of the beef with any of them.
Especially not Pablo. I don't want Pablo digging into, I don't even know if there's any dirt on me, but Pablo would find it if there was.
I did say I think it would be the scariest thing in the world is to just wake up one day and get a message from Pablo, especially on LinkedIn, because that seems to be his preference, of just saying hey, can we talk about this?
See, and that's why I'm not on LinkedIn.
Yeah, if you listened to my Zach Lowe appearance the other day, you've heard a hilarious story of me and LinkedIn Premium. So just go listen to that. I'm not going to rehash it here because it makes me sound stupid. Jared, we're continuing on with our division previews. We're going to move to the Southeast. We've already done the Atlantic. We've already done the Pacific. We're kind of going back and forth, coast to coast, folks. We're going to go Southeast today. Jared, where do you want to start?
Let's just go alphabetical order. Start with the Atlanta Hawks. This offseason, their major moves, they made that completely ridiculous trade with the Pelicans to secure both the 23rd pick this year and probably a higher pick next year than the one that they gave up.
Caveat should be ridiculous trade for the Pelicans. This is a slam dunk for them. Just quick caveat on that end.
Ridiculous in a good way for the Hawks. They drafted Asa Newell. They traded for Kristaps Porzingis. They traded away Clint Capella. They signed Nickeil Alexander-Walker. They signed Luke Kennard. and their over-under is 46.5 wins for this season. Mo, what are you excited about or looking forward to about the Hawks? I feel like there's a lot here.
There's a lot here. I'm actually really excited for this team. I think it's going to be a really interesting squad across the board. There's a lot to pick. I'm actually going to go with, I'm very interested / excited to see how Kristaps Porzingis looks with the Atlanta Hawks and playing with Trae Young and what he does for Trae Young. Because Young's never played with a pick and popper as good as Porzingis, has never played with a big who's going to command a switch and then be able to punish the switch. And I think that's kind of the thing that is going to be really interesting, because it's an interesting dynamic for Trae, who I think has evolved a bit last season, needs to continue that evolution, playing off ball and working that way. But I think that pick and roll is something I'm really fascinated about.
Yeah, the pick and pop stuff obviously is huge. The pick and short roll stuff to the nail, I'm glad you brought up the switches. He's gotten so much better at punishing those over the last few years, especially in Boston, not this past year, but the year before when they won the title. He was just absolutely dynamite, most efficient post-up player in the league. He's gotten better at sort of reading when teams are going to bring a second man over to those post-ups and making the right pass. And obviously he's just an absolutely massive dude. And he's one of the rare guys in the league that can both create space on one end and erase it on the other with his ability to protect the rim. And obviously you need that behind Trae Young as well. He sort of connects into what I'm excited for, which is just all the different optionality that this team has with the lineups that they can use. They can start Porzingis alone. They can start him next to Onyeka Okongwu if they want to go a little bit bigger. They can play both of those guys together. They can play either one of them solo. They can play Jalen Johnson at the 3 or the 4. They can play Trae Young with Nickeil Alexander-Walker. They can play Alexander-Walker as the backup point guard. They can play basically any combination of all of their guys, probably except for Trae Young and Luke Kennard together. But other than that, there are so many different ways that they can cobble this thing together, and they can play a lot of different styles in a way that they haven't been able to over the last few years.
Yeah, and the Kennard pickup was a sneaky good pickup. Look, he's not amazing, but he's just kind of solid, right? He's never as good as everybody hopes he would be, but he can contribute in a way. He's going to knock down shots, adding another movement shooter, another guy that can kind of spread the floor, another guy that he can handle the ball-ish, a little bit. There's a little bit of that stuff with him. He can do a little bit of everything for them on the offensive end that I think just adds a little more potential to their offense.
If you have him on the court with either Alexander Walker or Dyson Daniels when Trae isn't out there, then I think you're fine-ish on the ball handling front. As long as he's not the sole ball handler out there, then I think you're pretty good there. And obviously they have a bunch of different guys that can sort of share in that responsibility. I don't think you ever really want him to play with Trae Young. There are probably certain lineups that you can get away with it against. But if he's a 14 to 18 minute a game guy, just comes out there, shoots threes, acts as sort of a co-backup point guard, that's a really good pickup that they got for only 1 year and $11 million.
Yeah, I think that one's a really interesting one. I think I like where we're going with that.
Yeah. What do you got for the thing you're worried about or not looking forward to?
I mean, it's funny, the worry about is Trae Young in the sense of, they didn't even negotiate or talk about a contract extension. It feels like there's some hurt feelings there. Is he going to be a little bit in his feelings in that regard? Is this going to be a thing where he's going to be I need to show out. I'm not going to play the way I played last year. I want to show everybody who I am because I might be playing for a contract in 2 years, and I think that, and he has a player option for the next season. And I think so that's a little bit interesting, but I am a little bit worried about that. I think that's something I'm slightly concerned when it comes to it of just, a pouting star player, and how that can affect the entire team.
Yeah, I wrote about that yesterday as one of the 3 things for the 3 things preview at Last Night in Basketball. I think that it's a stalemate that kind of makes sense from both sides. I understand why the Hawks are reluctant to go, we're just going to give you the 35% max because that's what teams do in this situation, especially in the current cap and apron environment. Just giving that money out because that's what you do is probably not advisable. Is he worth all of that money when you basically have to be a Trae Young team when Trae Young is on your team, and that hasn't necessarily proven to be the best way to play basketball, but also he's really, really good. And he, I think, deservedly thinks, like, I've been the best player on this team. The team has been created around me and my skill set, and I'm the one that makes it work with the way that you want to play over the last, whatever it is, 7 years at this point. Why aren't you just offering me as much money as you can, and why would I take anything less than that? Like, I think it makes sense that they, like, both sides, when you look at it from their perspective, that they aren't able to come to an agreement because both sides want different things. Like, Trae shouldn't take less than the max in an extension, right? Like, that's what he should be asking for, and I'm not sure that the Hawks should be offering it just, right away. Like, it's a risk, obviously, and they could wind up losing him for nothing, and it's a risk, like you said, in terms of, like, the personality and whether he's going to play the way that you want him to play this year. But I feel similarly about it to when there was sort of a stalemate between Dame and the Blazers, where Dame was posturing, trying to get everything he wanted to get to go to Miami, and the Blazers were just like, no, we're not doing that. We don't like their deal. And it made sense from the perspective of both sides. Like, this is what Dame wants. Dame's agent is supposed to be trying to get him exactly what he wants. And this is what the Blazers want out of a deal. And they're not supposed to cave just because that's what the star player wants. I feel very similarly about this situation, even though it's obviously sort of a different kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think you're right in that both sides are kind of rightfully doing what they're supposed to do. I just think it could throw a wrench into the season, and that would be a little bit of a concern on my end of it.
Yeah.
What about you?
No, yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, I definitely would carry at least some level of concern that Trae would play not the way that you want him to play, or not the way that he played for most of last year, and instead go looking for, not necessarily looking for his numbers, which sometimes he plays that way anyway, where it's like, I'm the only one on the offense that can make the play, and that's sort of where I get frustrated with him. But leaning more into that side of his playing style rather than, moving around off the ball more often, setting some screens, being willing to engage on defense like he did last year in a way that he wasn't willing to for the first 6 years of his career. Still a bad defender because he's so small and so slight that he's just never going to be able to be even a neutral presence on that end, but he can pay attention and try, and that makes it a lot more palatable. What I'm worried about here is health. Like, Kristaps had the virus at the end of last year. He's never been the picture of health throughout his career. Jalen Johnson, who I absolutely love, can't stay on the court. He's played something like 50-something% of the games in his career. Like, this is a very combustible situation, or not combustible situation, but it's a situation that could go south quickly if the most important guys on the team can't stay on the court.
Yeah, and that's just what happened to them last year.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, there's no other way to say it. Like, they were a really fun team, and then once Jalen Johnson went down, it just dived.
It's so
and I think that's
important.
tough.
Like, they don't really have big wings that play like him, like that.
Right.
And he's so important for the way that they want to play.
And I liked what they've done in the offseason, though. I thought overall they put themselves in a good position, to kind of, in the way the condition the Eastern Conference is in. I kind of like the way they set themselves up.
Yeah, I wish they had one more big wing to sort of fill that Johnson role if and when he's not out there, but everything else, I really like what they've done. What's your prediction for the Hawks this year? And this could be, by the way, any kind of prediction. This can be their wins. This can be what they're going to do in the playoffs. This can just be something that's going to happen with a player or a coach or what have you. It can be anything you want.
I'm going to go nuts here, Jared. I'm going to go crazy. I'm going to throw one out here that I'm not. I'm throwing it out here to just be a little bit crazy on this one. Just because we talked about the stalemate, I think they trade Trae Young at the trade deadline.
Woo!
I think it gets to the point where, like, we know where this is heading. We're not, and I think the team is going to be good, but I don't think they're going to be at the point where they're going to be great, and at that point where they really think. And I think there's going to be a situation where they're going to find themselves going, like, we know where we're heading with this contract. Let's just get ahead of it, right? Let's try to make this move now. They could even work with Trae to kind of find a place. The only thing that's really difficult about this, besides obviously big moves in in-season trade deadline is very difficult is I don't know where Trae Young fits. I don't know what team I look at going, I want to see Trae Young on that team. I think they go another level. There was always those rumors floating around about San Antonio. I never liked it, but they got the Aaron Fox now. So now that's not a Trae Young option at all. And it never seemed like San Antonio was that interested in him. I'm just curious. I would just be interested to see what team is going to be like, maybe we take a swing at Trae Young and we can kind of change our fortunes here a little bit.
That is extremely spicy. I love it. The place I come down is that I think I agree that it's difficult to find the fit for him, and we've seen that over the last couple of years where there have been reports that they were potentially interested in looking and exploring trades for him, but the market just hasn't been there because, like I said earlier, like if you have Trae Young on your team, you basically have to be a Trae Young team. Otherwise, there's really no point of having him on your team. You got to build the entire ship around him offensively, and you got to play that style of basketball. And it's not necessarily a style of basketball that's like, we're going to go win the finals.
Right.
So it's hard to identify the team that's going to be interested in that. But if it's going like you say, where they're good but not great, and they think, you know what, we're not going to extend this guy at the end of the season and we think he's going to opt out, you kind of have to explore it because you can't lose him for nothing.
Yeah. At the very least, we're going to see a lot of smoke. Maybe a trade doesn't happen, but I think we're going to hear a lot of smoke about potential Trae Young rumors. And I think that will be an interesting scenario to see how that kind of plays out.
Yeah.
What about you, Jared?
Yeah, I'm leaning into the if they're healthy situation here. And if they're healthy, going to the conference finals.
Wow.
If
so
they're
that
healthy.
means at some point they're probably going to knock out either New York or Cleveland, who are probably the best two teams, or Orlando. That is, I don't know what's spicier. Actually, no, I know which one's spicier. Mine was a little bit spicier. But like the if they're healthy, like they have a lot of talent across the board with their team, and I think if they can kind of come together and put this, if Trae puts his ego aside, I think this is a whole different scenario for them. And he's done a good job last season. Like I thought he improved last season in that process, but they almost need more. And they need him to turn it up even more towards that area. And it'll be interesting to see how that kind of plays out. That's a good one, Jared.
I was proud of it. I do think that they're probably not going to stay healthy, though. So it's going to look pretty stupid.
But it would be interesting because it'd be a team that's been basically the play-in tournament in the East has been the Atlanta Hawks Miami Heat Classic.
Yeah.
And then they're going to go from that to immediately jump into the conference finals. Would be a fun adventure, to say the least, in what we're looking at. Great. We're taking alphabetical order, so that means we're going to Charlotte next. See, look at me. I know my ABCs.
Man, significant moves this offseason. Drafted Con Knippel, Liam McNeely, Ryan Kalkbrenner, and Sion James. Traded Mark Williams for the rights to McNeely and a future first-round pick. Trade use of Nurkic for Colin Sexton and a second-round pick. Re-signed Trey Mann and Mason Plumlee. Signed Spencer Dinwiddie. Their over-under is 26.5 wins at last I checked. What are you excited about for the Hornets this year?
I'm excited about the young guys, not just Con Knippel, but I want to see,
Did you see, by the way, did you listen to Zach and Simmons last week where they were predicting the USA basketball roster in 2028, and Simmons put Con Knippel on the team?
Yeah, no, listen, I'm not doing that. That's an insane take in terms of
it was wild. I was like, whoa.
And I think part of that is, just the pure fact of like, isn't Knippel like a big Simmons fan? Like has been a big, yeah, I think that's been part of the whole run. Like I think he ended up becoming a favorite of Bill Simmons because of, not saying the kid can't play. The kid can hoop. I like it.
I was just surprised.
Yeah, that's just an extreme one. Also, on that podcast, we should say Bill was basically saying nobody under 30 on the team. He was going all young guys. So in that area, you have to kind of start to stretch. But that Con Knippel pull was a bit wild. But him, Liam McNeely, I really am focused more than anything else on Brandon Miller third season. I want to see the way we put pressure on Scoot. I want to see that on Miller a little bit. I know injuries and stuff have kind of held him back for the most part, but I want to see that. That's what I'm most excited and interested about when I look at this team. Is those are the guys I want to see like thrive. Like I want to see progress. Like they revamped their front office, new coaching staff, everything. We know how bad they were last year. Probably not going to be good this year. But I want to see sort of improvement. At least us heading in a trending in the right direction sort of scenario.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like, I am very excited about Brandon Miller. I was super excited about him last year. I thought he was going to take a pretty significant step forward, and then he kind of didn't, and then he got hurt and was out for the rest of the year. So I want to see from him what I was expecting to see last year. I think he's, like, created in a lab to be, like, a number 2/3 option that shoots it well from the outside, beats closeouts, works as a secondary ball handler, has the size and length to be a good defender on the perimeter against small and big wings. Like, I really want to see him take a significant step forward this year. And that was going to be the specific thing that I was excited about. But I also wrote about this earlier in the offseason, and I wrote about it today for the Three Things preview. I kind of like what the Hornets have been doing with, like, their roster arbitrage over the last couple of years and just collecting draft assets. They collected an additional like 8 or 9 second-round picks, an additional 2 or 3 first-round picks over the last few years with their various trades of guys on the roster that, you know, were obviously not good enough to make them really good anyway. So I like what they've been doing there, sort of at a lower level, because it does seem like the Tijan Salon, the guy who they drafted last year, was like one of the worst rookies that I've seen in a very long time. But
it's sad because I kind of liked it when I was watching him
last year, or like in summer.
No. In before the draft, like I was watching his stuff and I was like, there might be something here. And then I was like, oh.
Yeah, I
do sometimes
like
you have big misses.
The way they're managing the roster, though, and that's interesting to me.
Yeah, you know, just while you were talking, I was Googling their draft assets. You know, they have. You know, I think next year is their own pick, right? And or swap rights. That one's confusing. I get confused with the swap rights. But next year, 2027, they have their own first-round pick. They have Dallas's first-round pick protected 1 to 2, top 2 protected, I should say. They have Miami's first-round pick lottery protected, which might convey, might not. We'll talk about Miami. I don't know where they go in that area. You know, they have. In 2029, 2 first-round picks, one very complicated one via Utah, Cleveland, or Minnesota. I'm not going into details there. And their own in 2029. So 2 first-round picks in 2029. They're kind of set up pretty nicely in what you're saying in terms of that. And I don't think they're done collecting
no, definitely
picks.
Not.
You know, their pick this year is 2026 is swaps with Washington, but protected 9 for protected 8 and lower. God, I can't.
Yeah, because Washington's pick goes to the Knicks if it's outside the top 8. I believe
it's probably like the most complicated. Like, we need to stop this. Like, one, I hate pick protections in general. Either have the balls to throw the pick in there and not have any sort of protections in there. Like, how much do you really believe? But this whole multiple swaps and da-da-da, and less favorable, more favorable, da-da-da, this and that. Stop it.
All right. It's a take I can get behind. Like, the NFL, they don't have pick swaps. I would be very interested to see if they started doing pick swaps and protected picks in the NFL. Because those teams already go crazy with draft pick trades. Like,
well, they have what is it, 8 rounds?
7 rounds. Yeah, there's like 250 something picks in the draft. Obviously, there's a lot more players on NFL. There's like
I would feel bad for the NFL reporters that have to keep up with the front offices that have to keep up with it. Nah, man, that pick's been swapped 17 times. Like, no, man, and they already have conditional picks, which also confuses me. We're really veering off course with all that stuff. But you're right in the way Charlotte is building this. They're doing kind of what Washington did.
Yep.
You know,
and that's
tear
what I
it
wrote
down.
About, in that story, I wrote about Charlotte and Washington being like, they've both done this kind of the right way. I think Washington's done it a little better just because it looks like their draft picks are better. Like the 3-4 guys that they got in last year's draft look pretty good.
Yeah,
we'll talk about them later on, but I like what they're doing there. What are you not excited about, worried about, whatever for the Hornets?
LaMelo Ball.
Oh, I wrote about that today too.
Just like it's. Can he care about winning? Can he just care about winning? Like, that's the thing. Like, I don't. He's all style, no substance. And I think that's what frustrates me. The highlights are great. All that stuff. None of this has been conducive to winning. He hasn't played in a game that really matters in I don't know how long. It's like, can he just care about winning? And, like, let's just play ball and win. And I think he's capable of that stuff. But I just think he has to want to. And that's kind of my concern and kind of what I'm least interested about with this team.
I have the exact same thing. And that, what you said at the end, is the most frustrating part of it. He has a skill set that should lend itself to making his teammates better on both ends of the court, and that should lend itself to making his team better on both ends of the court, and he doesn't tap into that side of things often enough. He can make any pass that exists in the entire world, but he
can make passes that don't exist, that we'd find out existed because of him.
Yeah, but he makes the wrong one a lot of the time because he's trying to do the thing that only he can do because he thinks he can do it, but he can't do it 100% of the time because nobody can. And there are things in front of him that would be the right play to make. There are shots that he can make. He has maybe the worst shot selection in the entire league, and he still shoots 36.5% from three. Imagine if he cut out 40, 50% of the terrible shots that he takes because he thinks he can make them. Because he can make them, which is the crazy thing, but he just doesn't need to take them. Like the passing and the shot selection, it's the same kind of thing. He can do everything, but he doesn't have to play that way. On defense, he can acknowledge that it exists. He has the size and length to be the same kind of defender that his brother was when he was healthy and playing at his peak for the Bulls. He should be able to do that. He just doesn't acknowledge that defense exists most of the time, except to dart in and out of passing lanes. There are times where you see, like, the stuff in passing lanes, great. Keep doing that. Absolutely. Don't do it every single time because you're not going to be able to get to the ball every single time, and those gambles put your teammates in bad positions. The stuff that he can do on the ball on occasion where he just gets all up in guys, do that more often. You have the capability to do that all the time. You're 6'8" with long arms and good feet. You should be able to do that all the time. And this is where people say, like, oh, his team sucks. Like, why is he going to, like, how is he going to play winning basketball? I'm sorry. I don't care. Just because your team sucks doesn't mean you have to play like you're on a shitty team and in a way that doesn't make the rest of the team better. Like, there is still a way to play the right way, even on a team that's bad at basketball.
Right. Just trend. I just want to see an upward trend. And it may not necessarily mean wins, but I just want to see more conducive winning basketball on the floor where I can be like, that can be something that can be winning basketball. That's the stuff that frustrates me. That's the things when I look at them and I'm just like, and don't get me wrong, he's going to throw a pass. I'm going to tweet it out going, holy shit.
He can throw passes, like you said, that don't exist until he makes them exist. He is a genius level playmaker and passer.
But it's like what you said. He'll try to do that 100 times before instead of just making the right pass.
Yeah,
and I
do
think
it 75 times instead of 100 times.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of the my thing with them. Where are you with that? Is that what it is?
Oh, that was exactly what mine was. Was the same thing about the whole LaMelo Ball situation. And I mean, also just like the total lack of talent elsewhere on the roster. But yeah, what's your prediction for this team?
They're going to be a bottom 3 team in the NBA, not the East, just the NBA in general. I think there'll be some improvements with the young players, but I don't see a way in which this team really rises to the cream of the crop or even kind of sniffs even a run for the play-in tournament. To me, they're going to be a bottom 3 team in the NBA.
Yeah, I had just the under on the 26.5 wins. Like, they had, I don't remember what it was, like 17, 18 wins last year. They were only
19 wins.
19 wins, only ahead of the Wizards, I believe, in the Eastern Conference. And I don't see them getting very many more than that this year. Even if these guys stay healthy, I just think there's a total lack of talent elsewhere on the roster, and they're so young. They're going to be horrendous on defense, and it's really hard to be good enough on offense to make up for that. Especially when the player who's going to drive your offense doesn't always play the way you want to play to drive efficient offense. But yeah.
That's going to be
anything else on the Hornets, or you want to move on to the next team here?
Let's move on to the next team. We spent a lot of time on the Hornets. That's a lot of time for Charlotte.
Yeah, it is. All right, we got the Miami Heat up next. They drafted, I'm definitely going to butcher the name, but I believe it's Kasparis Yakusionis. Signed and traded Duncan Robinson for Simone Fontecchio. Re-signed Davion Mitchell. Traded Kevin Love and Kyle Anderson for Norm Powell. Re-signed Drew Smith, which is sort of, I guess, vaguely interesting kind of thing since he's been bouncing around there for a few years. Over under 39.5 wins. What are you most excited about or looking forward to for the Heat?
Gosh, I don't know if I'm that excited for the Miami Heat, to be honest with you. Just in general, like, I'm excited for. I want to see what Norman Powell does to this team, and adding kind of a little bit more of a north-south driver for them, I think will make a difference for them. Their shot profile was awful last year. Didn't really get to the rim. Didn't even shoot as many threes as they used to. Were heavy in the mid range with all that stuff. I'm excited for that, and I'm going to throw in another one. I'm curious. I don't want to say excited. I'm curious about the development of Kel'el Ware.
You stole mine.
Oh, I'm good at this, man. No, it's just we're on the same page on this one.
Yeah, no, I mean, I like your idea of Norman Powell. I think that he is a good fit with Bam for their similar role to Duncan Robinson with all of the off-ball screens and dribble handoff stuff, where he has the similar kind of quick trigger to get the jumper off in those situations. But he also brings, like you said, the straight line drive kind of stuff, which is not really something that anybody else on that team has, and they desperately need someone to get to the rim like that. But yeah, I mean, mine was going to be year 2 of Kel'el Ware. I think he's the kind of guy that there is at least the potential there to space the floor on one end and protect the rim on the other, and erase some space as a sort of a mobile big man on the other end too. I'm interested to see whether he starts, whether Nikola Jovic starts, whether they both come off the bench. I don't really know what's going to happen there. I think the two big lineup with him and Bam was at least vaguely interesting last year. I just think he's got a really interesting skill set, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he does in year 2, whether that year 2 leap comes from him.
Yeah, that's going to be a good one. You know what, Jared? I'm going to ask you, because I don't want to steal it. What is your biggest concern or least favorite thing you're going to look forward to with the Miami Heat?
See, I was going to go with what you said earlier, which is I just don't think it's a very interesting team in general. This is like the most boring. This is going to be a play-in team again. And I don't see a way that they become like a super dynamic offense or like a top 10 defense just because of the mix of players that they have on both ends of the court. Is it going to be a team that's like between 12th and 18th on both sides of the ball and just be there and get eliminated in the play-in or the first round of the playoffs again? That's what I feel like I'm looking at here.
Yeah, I think for me, and that's a fair one. That's how I feel about them. I think for me, the thing I'm kind of most concerned about is, are we just going to have another year of just bad offense? Like, is this really, I talked about it on the Zach Lowe podcast. We're talking about offenses, and that was kind of our focal point was, like, where is this team going to go? Like, Powell's going to help a little bit, but like, Bam kind of has looked like he regressed last year. It's, I'm not sure I'm all that into Tyler Hero. I know he can hoop. I'm not trying to say he's a bad player, all that stuff. I'm kind of shocked with the decline in Jaime Jaquez Jr., although he went to UCLA, so I'm not surprised. But I think there's a lot of like, I kind of just don't know where they're going with this. And I think it's a weird sort of thing. And to me, they're just so not interesting. And that's even with Jovic coming off a really good Eurobasket. And I think, he looked really good till Serbia got knocked out. And then it's like, is that going to continue? Are we going to see him kind of take a little bit of a leap forward? Or is Spo going to give him the chance to have that? Those are the things I'm really kind of curious about.
Now that you mentioned the Eurobasket stuff, I'm very interested in, we've talked about the Team USA bump that guys get from playing in, the Olympics or the World Cup or whatever. I'm interested to see whether there's a Eurobasket bump and whether that actually carries over for guys from playing well in Eurobasket.
Save that for the next team. Save that for the next team. We'll discuss.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Save it for the next team. That's why.
I'm interested in general and whether that's a phenomenon that actually occurs year over year. So I'm going to try to find a way to take a look at that for last night in basketball at some point. But what is your prediction for the Miami Heat this year?
Okay, so everything I said, to me, they're one of the least interesting teams, all that stuff. I don't know what their offense is. This is the type of team Spoelstra takes to 48 wins. This is the thing that's so annoying about Eric Spoelstra being one of the best coaches, has a great staff with him across the board. This is the type of team we're going to look at going God damn. We're going to sit there and go are they good? Are they? And they're not. But it's just
how
Spoelstra.
Are they the 4 seed or the 5 seed? This makes no sense.
Yeah, Spoelstra does this. This is the perfect team for him in that sense, right? And it's not no crazy strong personalities like Jimmy Butler for him to clash. He gets to be really the main alpha in the deal. This is like a Spoelstra team. I don't have them as a 4 or 5, but I have them in the mix for the 6 seed come playoff time.
That's I don't know if I can get there. My prediction is just they lose in the play-in again. Mm-hmm. That's or not again because they did get to the playoffs this past year, but I got them losing in the play-in this time around, and then they make significant changes next summer.
Right. I didn't understand the Hayward Highsmith trade. That just seemed random to me when they just sent him off. That part, I was
I forgot to put that on the list of transactions because I wrote down these transactions for all the teams a couple weeks ago when we were starting these podcasts, and they hadn't traded him yet at that point. But good point. He's a solid player, and I don't necessarily understand that trade either.
Yeah.
I know we didn't talk about the Heat very much, but it's like we said, it's kind of a vaguely uninteresting team.
It's hard to talk about them in that their where their stories are going to go in terms of what are they going to be. But that's how, but again, this is when they sneak up on people. I'm just telling you now, Jared, we're going to do a podcast in February and be fuck, man, Spo's done it again.
Probably. That's what he always does.
Yeah.
All right, next team is the Orlando Magic, who, as we talked about extensively earlier this offseason, I guess it was during the season because they traded him during the finals, I believe, or just before the finals. Caldwell Pope, Cole Anthony, 4 first-round picks in the swap for Desmond Bane. They drafted Jace Richardson. They signed Tyus Jones. They re-signed Mo Wagner, and they extended Paolo Banchero at the max. Their over-under is 50.5 wins. Mo, I think I can guess what this is, but what are you most excited for or looking forward to about the Magic?
Franz Wagner. You talked about the Eurobasket.
That actually wasn't it, but there we go. That's nice.
This is why I was telling you to hold off because first off, Jared, there is a Eurobasket bump. I'll tell you offline where you can go as you start to do your research, but there is a Eurobasket bump for some of these guys, right? And it's this is a guy I expect Franz to really have another. He already kind of started this last year. And then got hurt with the oblique. But he started out the season really on fire. And even when he came back, his numbers were similar, but it never felt the same. Mm-hmm. Watching him with the German national team, I was like, yo, he's going to have a great year. Again, assuming health and all that stuff. That is what, that's what I'm excited about for this. I'm locked in. I want to see this team kind of get going. Paolo needs help. I think Franz is going to be a monster. I think he's going to be aided by the addition of Desmond Bane. I think Bane kind of takes a little more pressure off of him as well in terms of they get to spread the playmaking around and the ball handling around a little bit more with Bane. I think it opens opportunities for Franz. I think we need to see more cutting and more movement from him in that sense, but I think there's going to be an area there. The one thing that does worry me about Franz is his three-point shot has just completely disappeared. And I'd like to see that kind of come back in some sort of form to just being average if we can get there. But Franz is there, and I'm telling you, Jared, the Eurobasket bump is real.
I'm excited for Franz too. Like you said, last season he did get off to the really good start before he had the oblique injury. But obviously, like the jumper has just been completely disappeared for the last couple of years. By the end of last season, the hitch that he had in the jumper was like, oh my God, this is like a disaster level. Is this going to be a thing that sort of derails his career? But the dude is so ultra talented. Like that kind of big wing who can get where he wants off the dribble, who can play on both sides of pick and rolls, who can defend on the other end of the court. Like he is a perfect complement to Paolo in that sense, and I'm very excited for him too. But mine was Desmond Bane because I want to see the Orlando Magic play with one guy on the court who can make a shot from outside the arc, right? Like just one guy. And Desmond Bane is one of the best shooters in the league. Obviously, we talked about this a lot when we did the podcast and the Bane trade that people can go listen to. But, man, like just the way that that's going to open things up for them on that end of the court and the additional ball handler that it gives them, can play in two-man action with Paolo, with Franz, can play as sort of the lead ball handler in backup point guard units, can play with Jalen Suggs, can play without Jalen Suggs. You can go big, you can go small. There's so much that you can do because of his presence on the court and what he opens up for them, specifically offensively. But he brings all that and doesn't take away from their defensive identity, because despite the fact that he is the exact opposite of an Orlando Magic player, because his arms are like this, where every other Magic player's arms are like this, he is still a very good defender. He's strong. He's stout. He moves his feet really well. He's going to fit right in for them on that end of the court. So just everything that he's going to bring to the table is so exciting.
Yes. Now let's just go straight to you. What are you most worried about when it comes to this team?
I'm worried they're still not going to have enough shooting. One guy on the team that can shoot is still not enough. Maybe Franz bounces back shooting. Maybe Paolo takes a step forward as a shooter. Maybe Jalen Suggs can actually stay on the court. I get health is, I guess, a concern too at this point, because Suggs, who is really, really important for them on both ends of the court, hasn't proven that he can stay healthy throughout his career. Obviously, we had the oblique with both Paolo and Franz last season. Bane has had some injuries in the past too. Mo Wagner's coming off the torn ACL, and we don't know if or when he'll be full strength for the season. It's a team that's had a bunch of injury issues in the past, but I'll get into this a little bit more with my prediction. Like, I'm still worried about the lack of shooting on their roster because it can't just be one guy.
Yeah, for me, it's actually, you touched on it, it's health, but it's the health of Jalen Suggs. Because look, the first oblique tear with Paolo, they were able to sustain actually, and still, we were all kind of like, they're cooked. And they were still balling. They were still playing really well. They were still really rolling through everything that they had. It's going to be a thing to watch for. And I felt like Suggs was a huge part of that.
Oh, yeah.
Even when Franz...
That stretch is where Franz really took his lead. I did a video on that earlier in the season. And Suggs was absolutely crushing it. And then Wagner goes out, and then Suggs goes out.
And then once Suggs went down, he only played 35 games last year. It was all bets were off for the team. Even when Paolo and Franz came back, they could never find that. Like, he was the glue guy. You can tell very clearly how important he was to the team and just being that glue piece for them, because they were looking like a 3rd, 4 seed in that area, and they just fell completely off the map with that stuff. So that's my biggest concern. The other, more of a, I think it'll be better this year. But they have to play it. They have to put together a better offense and have an actual offensive scheme. That's going to be on Jamal Mosley. He's got to bring that to the team. They got it. They cannot have. They have such a good defense. They just got to have an average offense.
Yeah, I mean, the level of defensive cohesion that team has is among the most impressive of any unit in the league. It's like last year, at least for me, it was like them, Houston, OKC was like on a level that nobody else could touch in terms of the cohesiveness that they played with on that end of the court. Obviously, OKC even at a completely different level than those other teams, but the coaching that they get on that end of the court is so impressive, and I want to like Jamal Mosley as a coach like as much as humanly possible, because he's so good on that end of the court, and he's able to get more out of those guys on that end of the court than I think the defensive talent level suggests. The offense has been not necessarily as bad as the defense has been good, but it has not been encouraging. They need to be significantly more creative on that end of the court for sure.
All right, and with that, Jared, what's your prediction for the Orlando Magic this season?
My prediction is the offense isn't going to improve as much as we like to think that it is. I think that this is an offense that gets to around average rather than into the top 10, where people are thinking it might be able to go because they brought in Desmond Bane and because they brought in Tyus Jones to be the backup point guard.
All right. I'm going to go with, I think this team is going to host a first-round playoff series. So I think they're going to finish in the top 4 in the Eastern Conference. I think they're, even with their offense maybe not being at the highest high level or whatnot, or still being a work in progress, that defense is so damn good. Yeah. It's so tough to score on them. And I think that's the big answer there. So for me, I have them going in hosting a first-round playoff series.
Yeah, I'm into that. I feel like it's 2 or 3 teams fighting for 2 spots in that 3 and 4 spot. You're going to have Cleveland and New York, or New York and Cleveland in that 1 and 2 spot most likely. And then it's Atlanta, Orlando, Detroit,
Milwaukee.
I mean, that Milwaukee roster outside of Giannis is so bad.
Yeah, but that Eastern Conference is so bad.
Yeah, but the rest of that roster outside of Giannis is so bad.
It's rough.
No, I mean, I feel like this is a pretty safe prediction as long as they stay healthy. I feel really good about them being able to be a top 4 seed as long as those guys are able to stay on the court, which, as we've talked about, is a pretty big question, right?
Yeah.
But I think that I'm on the same page as you in terms of them being able to host a first-round playoff series. I think the bigger question is, can they make it through that first round, and can they get to the conference finals? Can they be one of the teams that gets in there instead of the Knicks or the Cavs, or instead of the Hawks or the Pistons or whoever that you might think would be able to get there, right?
Right. All right, Jared. We've made it to the last team in the Southwest Division.
Also the Southeast Division, but I will go on to the Washington.
I'm leaving that in.
Major moves. Significant moves this offseason. They drafted Trey Johnson and Will Riley, traded Jordan Poole, Sadiq Bey, the rights to Micah Peavy, and 2 second-round picks for C.J. McCollum, Kelly Olynyk, and Cam Whitmore. Then traded Olynyk for Blake Wesley, Malachi Branham, and a second-round pick. Traded Colby Jones for Dylan Jones and a second-round pick. Signed Marvin Bagley, re-signed Tristan Vucevic, and waived Marcus Smart. Their over-under is 21.5 wins. My dog is trying to jump onto my lap from the wrong side and is not going to be able to do it because there's no room between me and my desk on that side. But, Mo, what are you excited about when it comes to the Washington Wizards this season?
I'm excited for the young guys. This is very similar to, I know the same answer I had for Charlotte. I'm disappointed with Bilal Coulibaly's injury. He's going to be out 6 to 8 weeks with a torn ligament in his thumb. I only just found that out today, even though I was watching Eurobasket, Jared, but somehow that slipped by me. I wasn't focused on France, if we're going to be honest, but I somehow missed that one. But, Alexander Sarr, I want to see how he kind of builds going forward. Bub Carrington, all the young guys. I think moving Poole kind of opened that opportunity for them. They have a ton of veterans there, but I think all of those veterans, I feel like, will slowly get spun off. Right, it's like all these media networks spinning off their bad networks, but CJ, Chris Middleton, all of those guys I think will slowly kind of get spun off, and I want to see the development of the young guys. That's what I'm most interested in. This is a team, again, tore it down to the stubs. We're going to get back to the very basics and then start to build this up. It's going to be ugly in the first part of the phase. We're still in that ugly phase, but I want to see how those young guys look.
Yeah, I can't say that I was watching much Eurobasket, but I saw the Bilal Coulibaly injury news come up on the timeline yesterday, I believe it was, or maybe the day before, and that's why I was able to break that news to you before the podcast. But I am also most excited about the young guys this year, not just Alex Sarr and Bub Carrington, but over the second half of the season, Keyshawn George became a really good playmaker on defense if his shot comes around, which he shot really well at Miami in his 1 year there, but he was very inconsistent shooting on that end of the court last year. But the defense that he showed, rookies generally are not defensive playmakers, especially rookies that are not good athletes, which he tested as one of the worst athletes at the combine, but he has great size and great length, and he just appears to be really smart on that end of the court. And then you have a guy like Sarr, who is a very good athlete, and you have Carrington, who is a very good athlete. They brought in Trey Johnson, who's an elite shooter, made 39% of his threes at Texas. I believe Texas, right? Trey Johnson went to Texas. 39% of his threes
yes.
At Texas last year. The other Johnson that they traded for from Milwaukee last season in the Middleton and Kyle Kuzma trade, he showed some stuff at the end of the season last year too. Like, there are a bunch of interesting young guys here that can take steps forward, or that can just be exciting coming in. Like the Will Riley kid that they got in the draft too could be an interesting player also.
Yeah, I mean, they got a lot of young talent. I think they're just trying to explore, figure out who they are. They're like in that little like pre-teenage phase to figure out who they're going to be as they enter high school.
You know what it's like? It's like Houston like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Where all of the young guys are there, but they don't have like the good veterans to make them good yet. Like, they have Chris Middleton and CJ McCollum, but those guys are at this point old enough and past their prime enough that they're not going to be able to lift the team to 40-something wins. Like, that's just not going to happen. But they're going to have a bunch of cap room next summer, and if the young kids improve enough, maybe they can do their version of, let's go get, Dylan Brooks and and Fred VanVleet,
right?
And they were chasing Brook Lopez. But
they made a run at Lopez. Yeah.
But if those young kids can get better this year, then maybe they can do their version of that next year. And similar to the Hornets, like I said, I really like what they've done with the roster arbitrage over the last year plus. And this was something that I wrote about earlier in the summer, and I'm going to go pull it up because I really do like what they were able to do. It was like the story that I did was like, I quote unquote kind of like what the Wizards and Hornets are doing, and now my dog is like really trying to be annoying right now. But the Wizards over the last couple of years, they drafted Alex Sarr, they traded Denny Avdia, who looks like he's really good, for Malcolm Brogdon, the pick that became Bub Carrington, a 2029 first and 2 future seconds. They traded the number 26 pick for number 51 and number 24, which got them Keyshawn George. They signed Jonas Valanciunas. Then they traded Jonas Valanciunas for 2 future seconds. They signed Sadiq Bey. They traded Sadiq Bey. In that trade that got them C.J. McCollum, Kelly Olynyk, Cam Whitmore. They traded Olynyk for Branham and Wesley and a future second-round pick. They drafted Trey Johnson. They traded the Walter Clayton pick for Will Riley, a second-round pick, and 2 future seconds. They traded Colby Jones, the future second, for Dylan Jones. They traded Marvin Bagley, Johnny Davis, and a second for Marcus Smart, Alex Len, and a first. They traded Jared Butler and 4 seconds for Reggie Jackson and a first. They did the Kuzma trade where they got a first out of that. Like,
that was crazy.
They've added 5 first-rounders from last year's draft, 2 firsts and a second from this year's draft. They added first in 2026, 2028, and 2029, and a future second. They brought in Cam Whitmore. Like, they've done a lot of stuff over the last few years, and they've added a bunch of young, cheap talent, and they have the chance to add a lot more over the next few years. And I should say, Michael Winger spent 7 years in Oklahoma City and 6 with the Clippers, and Will Dawkins spent 15 years with the Thunder. It seems like they're following a similar blueprint to their former employer here.
Yeah, and I think they're on the right path. It's going to be painful. They're still going to be tough. It's still going to be a hard watch from time to time, but they're following the right path of what they need to do going forward. I like where they're headed, and this is those things. These are the things that you kind of look at, and I think it starts with also the key to this thing is not just making the right draft pick. It's being able to develop these guys, and that's the stuff that we got to kind of watch for. Jared, what are you least looking forward to?
I am least looking forward to watching their offense. I think that in the NBA, when you don't have good point guard play, you're basically drawing dead to have a good offense, and I find it very hard to believe that they're going to get good point guard play this year.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I am not looking forward to their off. Also because I think there are a lot of guys that are going to want to shoot, and not a lot of guys who are going to want to pass on that team. I think, you're going to have, we're going to have fun watching guys like Cam Whitmore get going, but I don't know if there's going to be, I think there's going to be an element of like, damn, man, like this team, like no offensive clue whatsoever. And I think that's going to be the thing where I'm going to be curious, and I'm worried about, because that also stunts development of some guys. And I think that's something that they need to keep an eye on and make sure they get a handle on. If you're Washington, if you're Brian O'Keefe, you have to make sure you're putting in a system in place that's going to at least allow for some movement to be made.
Yeah, it's going to be fun watching them fly around, but it's not going to be fun watching them let those jumpers fly, because there are going to be a lot of guys that want to shoot. There are not going to be a lot of guys that can shoot very well.
Yeah.
Trey Johnson can shoot. Cam Whitmore shot well in college. Keyshawn George, like I said, shot well in college. Alex Sarr has a little bit of stretch to his game, maybe. Bub Carrington, maybe if he can, develop a little bit and shoot from the outside, that would be nice. CJ can shoot. Who knows how much he's going to play? Middleton, who knows how much he's going to play? Who knows how long those guys are even going to be on the team? But I do agree, like you said, like it could stunt the development to not have good point guard play. Like that's why, to me, it was such an important pickup for the Spurs to have Chris Paul last year, for the Thunder to have Chris Paul very early on in Shea's career. Like, you need that guy that is able to get the rest of your guys the ball in position to succeed, and it doesn't really seem like they have that guy this year, and that could prove difficult to watch, and it could prove, I'm going to use a nice word for you, it could prove deleterious to the development of players.
Too big of a word for me. Just that education right there. What's your prediction for them?
My prediction is they are going to be a bottom 4 team in the league, because their pick is top 8 protected to send to the Knicks. And if they finish with the 5th worst record, there is a non-zero chance that they send their pick to the Knicks, and that would be an absolute disaster. So they are going to find a way to finish with one of the 4 worst records in the NBA.
Yeah, they're going to be a tanker from the outset. I don't, and I agree with it. Not even just because of the pick. You need to figure out what you have with these young guys, who you like, who you don't. I think we're going to see a lot of interesting stuff. But my predictions for them is they're going to ship off a lot of these vets that they do have and try to kind of create more draft assets. I don't know what CJ McCollum will go for. I don't know what Chris Middleton will go for. But I don't think there's a lot of room for those guys on the roster. And I think they're going to look to ship those guys off and get more draft assets for them and be involved a little bit at the trade deadline.
I do think it was interesting that they brought in like the president of the NBPA to sort of babysit the young guys, and I think that might lead them to maybe keep CJ, like having CJ and Chris around to sort of teach these guys how to be professional basketball players. I think is a good idea. Whether you want to keep them around for the full season or just until the trade deadline, I think might depend on how well they're playing and how much you can get for them. Because if it looks like you're not going to be able to get a lot, you might as well just keep them around, because it would be good for the younger guys to have those guys there, right?
Yeah, and I think that's going to be it's nice to have, but I just think at the end, those guys also aren't going to want to be there that long. Like, you're not in the NBA. Nobody joined the NBA to be babysitters. And I think that's an important distinction there. And that brings us to the end of our Southeast Division preview. We're at the end of that. But now we're at the quick fun part of the show, and let's keep it quick. Jared, how are the University of Miami Hurricanes doing after the 3rd week of football?
Big win over USF this week. Offense took it to them. Defense took it to them. Carson Beck, of course, threw his first 2 picks of the year, but he had 4 touchdowns, including one that he ran in. And, one of the picks wasn't really his fault. The guy that he wasn't throwing to tried to jump like 10 feet in the air because he thought that the pass was going to him, but it was really going to a guy behind him. But the offense looks incredible. Mark Fletcher running with incredible power. Malachi Toney, the reclassified true freshman, 6 catches for the 3rd game in a row to start his career. Josh Moore, another freshman, has 2 touchdowns in the first quarter of the game. Despite the fact that there was like an hour and 45-minute rain delay, we came out and dominated the game right after that. Again, Ruben Bain is like the best defensive player in the country. He's completely insane. He's going to be a top 10 pick in the draft. and maybe like top 15, top 20, just because he's kind of a tweener in terms of his body type. Nobody's really going to know if he's going to be an edge rusher or an interior defensive lineman, but the team is very good. We got Florida this weekend, who was sort of reeling after a loss to the same USF team and then to LSU. But if we can handle business there, then we got a bye week before Florida State in a couple weeks. And if we can win both of those games, then we will once again have the Florida State championship that we captured last year after beating all three of those teams.
How long was your weather delay?
Like an hour and 45 minutes.
Oh, that's tough. I feel so bad for you. Our game was delayed 4 fucking hours, Jared.
What?
Because of a lightning storm.
Oh yeah, it was ours was delayed in the middle. Was it delayed in the middle of the game?
It was right at the start of the game. We were getting ready, and then they announced a lightning storm and all that.
Yeah, ours was with like 11 minutes left in the second quarter or something like that.
Yeah, the what I had saw somewhere, and it's don't go fact check me. In that stretch, there was 900 lightning strikes in the area. God. So yeah, it was a massive situation.
Does LA have a lot of lightning? Like this is very typical in Florida at this time of year. Like it's
no in LA, no. But this game was in Purdue in Indiana. We were on the road. We got our first Big Ten road win. Outside. I don't count UCLA, but it's LA. It's home. But like we got our first one. This is a fun stat for you. This is our first win since 2012 in an Eastern time zone.
I mean, how many games have they even played?
Nine. We were 0 for 9. Because now, remember, we're in the Big Ten now. So we had lost. We didn't win on the road last year in the Big Ten. We had a ridiculous amount of losses. Close games that turned to losses. We lost like the Maryland game and things like just stupid shit. But this is a big one because this is one of those games. Wasn't pretty. We won 33-17. It was, we had a pick six. We had a thick six, which was, by the way, Jared, I highly recommend not just going looking up the thick six, look up the Spanish call for the thick six because it was so much fun. I did see the
video. I did not see the Spanish video. Now I'm going to have to go look that up.
Go find it because it was just fun. With that, shout out to Jamal Jarrett for that rumbling, tumbling thing. His teammates, I felt like, were picking him up and pushing him across the goal line. But that stuff. It was a big win for us just because we finally got the monkey off our back to a degree. Purdue's okay, but not like they're better than they were last year, is how I should say it. We got a big one coming up. We got Michigan State at home at a late game, 8 p.m. our time, so 11 p.m. East Coast time. Sorry, I know you won't be staying up for that.
Pac-12 after dark. Big Ten after dark.
Big Ten after dark. And then it's followed up with us playing the big noon game at Illinois, which I am nervous about because that's going to be even a big – I'm nervous about all these games. But this is going to be a nice little test for us as we start to get into really like – our schedule gets really tough pretty quick. But the next 2 weeks are going to be pretty fascinating with all that stuff. But we're 3-0. We're ranked 25th in the AP poll. I don't know how Notre Dame loses 2 games and then is ranked 24th. I get it. They lost to the
when you lose to the number 4 team in the country, you can still stay ranked when you're 0.
When you lose at home, your second loss at home is I don't know. I know they were tight games. But let's just say we're always doing this so that Notre Dame can find a way to fly back up.
We got college game day this week. Now that I think about it, by the way,
you do
at the University of Miami. It's going to be awesome. Hasn't been college game day down there, I believe, since 2017 when we absolutely smacked the shit out of Notre Dame.
There you go. Well, that brings us full circle. Folks, thank you for checking us out on the Double Dribble podcast. Make sure you're checking out all of Jared's work at Last Night in Basketball. Make sure you're checking out my work at Bleacher Report and my videos on Offside. I think anything else you need to plug, Jared?
No, man, that's it. Subscribe to the podcast, youtube.com/@DoubleDribblePod, Spotify, Apple, wherever else you subscribe to your podcasts. Leave us those 5-star reviews. Leave the comments. We're still responding to those as well. And, we'll see you next time, right?
Yep. Thank you for listening to the Double Dribble podcast.
See y'all.
Woohoo!
Double Dribble. vehicle.